the same sign. So we are on 1.3, adding rational numbers, page 19. Okay, so our central question we start out with is how can you add rational numbers? We talked about rational numbers yesterday and whole numbers and integers. So we're working with all of those when we say rational numbers. Okay, so to add rational numbers with the same sign, apply the rules for adding integers. Guys, we have done this last week or the week before. We have added integers and subtracted them and multiplied and divided. Okay, so today we're going to add our rational numbers. So the sum has the same sign as the sign of the rational numbers. Okay, let's read that again. The sum has the same sign as the sign of the rational numbers. Okay, so example number 1. When I go through this, guys, I am not going to read every little thing because this video would take forever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the questions and we're kind of going to do our own steps in a faster version. So for the first question, okay, Malachi hikes 2 5/10 miles or 2.5 miles and stops for lunch. Then he hikes 1 5/10 miles or 1.5 more miles. How many miles did he hike all together? So we have keywords. All together, we know we're going to be adding. Okay? So the whole objective of this lesson is we are going to be adding rational numbers with the same, and we're going to be using number lines. Okay? So first of all, which way, when we're adding, which way do we go in the number line? Very good. We always go to the right. We always go to the right if we are working with positives or if we're adding. Okay? We always go to the left this way from 0. So let's always box our 0 here. And then we have our positives over here and our negatives over here. So left is always going to be working with subtraction or, oh hello, you can't even see this part. We're going to be working with subtraction or negatives. Okay, so if we started at 2.5 and we want to add 1.5, we have to start at 2.5 and move 1.5 or 1.5. So I'm starting at 2.5 here and I'm moving a half, okay, because it goes from 2.5 to 3, and then a whole. Okay, so 2.5 plus 1.5 on the number line, we ended at 4. So that would be our answer there. Okay, all right, let's go on the next one really fast. I'm going to zoom out so we can see Kyle. So you can see a picture here. This is Kyle over here. Alright, Kyle pours 3/4 liter of liquid from a beaker. Then he pours out another ½ liter of the liquid. What is the overall change in the amount of liquid in the beaker? Okay, if we're pouring out, obviously we start out with liquid in our beaker. Okay, if we look at Kyle over here, we start out with liquid in our beaker and we pour it out. Okay, if pouring out, we're going to be subtracting. So he pours out 3/4 and then pours out a half. So when we look at these, we're working with rational numbers. So obviously we just did decimals on a number line, and now we're doing fractions. So it seems a little bit harder. But let's read our number line first. From 0 to -1, what do they split up in? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Correct? Okay, so it's split into 4. So if we start out at -3/4, let's label our number line. So if we start out at 0, this would be -1/4, right? Okay, because it's 1 out of the 4. This would be -2/4 or -1/2, and this would be -3/4. And then -1, of course, is the same thing as -4/4. Okay, so first of all, we got to get our number line right, because if we don't have our number line right, we can't read it. Okay, so we start at -3/4, just like this, and then we move -1/2. Well, what's -1/2 in fours? Well, half of 4 is 2, so we would go over 2/4. So here's 1, and then 2/4. So 1/4 we move, and then another 4th we move. So then in total we moved 1/2. So where do we land? Very good. We land at -1 and 1/4. So notice on A we added like signs that were positive. On here we added like signs that are negative, and we ended up with negative. Now, you've used these rules. We're just using maybe a little bit of harder numbers. Okay, let's move on. If I'm going too fast, please pause me and read that over. Okay, what I want you to do is I want you to do number 1, 2, and 3 and pause me, and let's see for time's sake. Okay, so pause me and we'll share answers in just a second. Okay, good. You paused me. I'm going to show you my answers. Okay, I said going to the right, we would go towards the positives. If we went to the left, we would go towards the negatives. So that's how we move on the number line. Okay, so you should have gotten 4.5 for number 2, because we started at 3 and we went over to the right because plus means positive and plus means we're adding. So we're going over to the right. 3, we have 2 negatives, right? Adding the like signs are moving on the number to negative. So I started at 2.5, negative 2.5, sorry, and we moved over negative 4.5 and landed on negative 7. So if we have like signs with negatives, we're going to end up with a negative because we're moving towards the negative and negatives in the number line. Okay, now I want to show you a little thing that I found out last night is if you have your QR code reader, instead of listening to me on this section, you're more than welcome to watch this on your QR, because fill in what the dude says on here and write it down. It's a cool, it's another option to do with Flip Video tonight, because I just want you trying it out. So it's a really cool thing to do if you want to, if you're bored of my voice. Okay, but if you're going to stay with me, let's keep going. Okay, adding rational numbers with different signs. Let's read together. To add rational numbers with different signs, find the difference of their absolute values. Then use the sign of the rational number with the greater absolute value. Okay? So here, Miss Hitchcock taught me something that I didn't teach my kids last week, is if we have different signs, it has DIFF in it, and then difference, which means subtraction, has DIFF in it. So it's a pretty cool way to remember subtraction here. Okay, we're going to go through this pretty fast. Okay, for example number 2. During the day, the temperature increases by 4.5 degrees. Increase means we're going towards the right, towards the positives. At night, the temperature decreases. So we're towards the negative, so I'm going to put a minus sign there, by 7.5. What is the overall change in temperature? Okay, so instead of going the same way in the number line, we are going to subtract and go different ways because they're unlike signs, or they're different signs. So we subtract and take the sign of the larger one, of course, that we did last week. But we're going to be using number lines today, so we're going to start at 4.5 and move over 7.5. Okay, so if I move over 7.5, okay, so I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, oh, whoops, and a half. So I moved over 7.5 and I landed on negative 3. Okay, alrighty, let's move on to the next one. Let's try this one. Okay, we're almost done. Bear with me. Ernesto writes a check for $2.50. When you write a check, that means you're giving someone money. So that would be going towards the negatives, a negative. Okay, then he does in his checking account. If you deposit, that means you're adding money in your checking account. And we're going to be going over this in detail when we go to our next unit. Okay, if he deposits $6 in his checking account, what is the overall increase or decrease in his account balance? Because look, we have a negative and a positive. We're going towards the negatives and then towards the positives. So here we're starting at negative 2.5, negative 2.5, and I'm moving over 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I land where? Good, I land at positive 3.5. 6 is larger, so that's why we're landing in the positives. Okay, we're going to skip 4 and 5 for time's sake. I want you to try adding different signs. Remember, different, DIFF, means we're subtracting the two numbers, but we're going to do it on a number line. So let's see if you can do it at a number line and put your answer here. I want you to pause me, come back, and let's see if we get the same answers together. Okay, glad you're back. Let's see if we got the same answers. Should have gotten negative 3, negative 1/4, and 6. Remember, when we're working with 4s, we have to split our number line into 4s from 0 to 1. So, sorry, I'm going back to number 7. So we need to make sure we split that number line into 4s so we're not so you're not getting confused, because if you don't, then there's no way to read that, correct? Okay, y'all are doing awesome. Stay with me. We're almost done. Okay, we're going to skip page 22. We're going to skip page 22 because it is so easy. It's talking about opposites. So, what is the opposite of 10? Good, negative 10. What's the opposite of 25? Negative 25. So, reading up here, we're just going to talk about a definition. The opposite, or additive inverse, of a number is the same distance from 0 on a number line as the original number, but on the other side of 0. The sum of a number and its additive inverse is 0. 0 is its own additive inverse. Okay? So if we're working with opposites and we're adding those together, we're subtracting, obviously, because they're different signs, so we're always going to end up in 0. Added together are always 0. Okay, so down here, I know I'm giving you the answers, but if you want to try it out on the number, but on these examples, of course, we're going to get 0 because they're additive inverses or they're opposites. Okay, moving on really fast. Okay, adding 3 or more numbers. This part, 3 or more rational numbers. So this part is, we're adding maybe 2 negatives and a positive, or 2 positives and a negative. So in this case, we are always going to make sure that we add like signs first, just like on step 3. From the word problem, for time's sake, I'm going to skip reading it over, so you need to read it. Looking over this, we add our positives first, and then we get in our negative in the mix. Okay? So down here, read this, and then we earn $3. Okay? So it's just like we did before. Use a number line if you need to. And I want you to read through this and see how they do it with two of the same sign and one different one. Okay? Now what I want you to do is I want you to find each sum for your turn on 11 through 14 and pause me, and let's see if we get the same answers. Okay, welcome back. This is the last thing, so bear with me. Okay. Okay, I was like, I can't see my papers. Okay, for number 11, we should have added 3.5 plus 2, and we should have gotten 5.5. Okay, then we should have subtracted, because we're adding different signs, and we should have got positive 4, or 4.0. Next one, we added our negatives first, and then we added 3 1/4 to the mix, which we have a negative and a positive, so we subtract and take the sign of the larger, and she got a negative 1. 13, we should have added our negatives first, and then added, so we had negative 6 plus 5 equals negative 1. 14, we should have added positives first to get 23, and then add negative 3 to the mix. So that means we're subtracting, and 23 is bigger, so we end up with 20. Okay, guys, y'all are amazing. Like I said, if you need to go back and use QR codes for these math on the spots, they're exactly what I just talked about, but you can go back and do this. Now, I know I said on the second part of this that you could watch this instead of me. That is true, but of course you need to watch this whole video to do the quiz. But after the video, I meant you could go back and watch this instead of, going off what I say. You can look on this if it makes more sense, okay? So you need to make sure you watch the entire video, and then you can go back on math on the spot if I'm not making any sense to you, because maybe those videos will help you more. Okay, y'all are awesome. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a